and humid on Friday evening and staying that way through the night as well. Quite an uncomfortable night for some with the largely clear skies, but a change then as we head into Saturday. And those weather systems we saw earlier out in the Atlantic bringing the risk of heavy, thundery showers from Saturday morning onwards across the southwest, but then spreading to the Midlands, up into Scotland and eventually into eastern parts of England. Some torrential downpours are possible on Saturday, large hailstones, gusty winds as well. A very warm and humid day across the east, but as the storms clear, it will start to turn fresher from the southwest. A mixture of sunshine and
like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think. Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in their home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Dewbs and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Congratulations to GB News Breakfast, voted by you as the nation's best multi-channel news programme at the prestigious Trick Awards.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry and this is Dewbs & Co. Coming up tonight, we're going to have the very latest on the horrendous situation in London. A car ploughing into a primary school. Goodness gracious me, what is going on? And Keir Starmer, he has been speaking out this time about education. So much to get into. Is Keir Starmer the man to sort it all out? Apparently things like class ceilings and all the rest of it, the way we talk. I mean, quite frankly, that's me done for, isn't it? Anyway, is he the man for the job or not? And what is going on when it comes to pervy politicians? Do you think that Westminster is some kind of weird boys club where some of them flounce around like they can do precisely what they want? I speak, of course, about Pincher by name and Pincher by nature. What is going on? It's laughable, isn't it? And I want to tell you something tonight that you might not be aware of. You, the GB News viewers, are being actively discriminated against. I'm going to tell you why. We need to come together and we need to say that enough is enough. We've got it all coming your way, but before we do, let's bring ourselves up to speed with tonight's latest headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Michelle, thank you and good evening to you. Well, the Prime Minister has said today his thoughts are with the family of the 8-year-old little girl who died today after a Land Rover crashed into her primary school in southwest London. Police were called to the scene just before 10 o'clock this morning. The school involved was the Study Prep School in Wimbledon. 16 people were treated at the scene, 10 were airlifted to hospital by helicopter. Police say the driver is a woman in her 40s. She's been arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving. Her voice cracking with emotion as she reported the death of the 8-year-old girl. Detective Chief Superintendent Claire Kellan said the incident isn't being treated as terror-related.
Officers, along with colleagues from other emergency services, provided first aid to a number of people who had been injured. Very sadly, one of the children, an 8-year-old girl, died at the scene. Our thoughts are with her family at this incredibly difficult time. The driver of a car, a woman aged in her 40s, stopped at the scene and has since been arrested for causing death by dangerous driving and remains in police custody.
Well, in other news today, the RMT union has announced within the last hour that it will inflict strike action on the London Underground. Its members will stop work from the 23rd to the 28th of July, so 5 days of industrial action, although services will run as normal, they say, on the 24th. They're walking out in their ongoing dispute over pensions, pay and working conditions. Now, the government has said today it's going to work towards handing over material requested by the COVID inquiry by next week. That's after the Cabinet Office lost its legal challenge over Boris Johnson's unredacted WhatsApp messages. Lawyers for the government had argued the material would be irrelevant, but the High Court has ruled the inquiry must be given full access. And the government has launched its bid to take its Rwanda deportation policy to the Supreme Court. Last week, the Court of Appeal overturned an earlier High Court ruling which found Rwanda could be considered a safe third country for asylum seekers. It comes as the House of Lords dealt a blow to the government, rejecting its illegal migration bill. MPs will now consider a series of amendments. Sir Keir Starmer's speech outlining Labour's education reform plans were interrupted by protesters today, urging him to stop making U-turns on climate policies. Take a look.
Done that one. Will you just...
Which side are the Labour Party on?
We are on the side of economic growth. Will you just let me please get on with this? Thank you very much.
Well, if you're listening on radio, I can tell you that the television pictures we're showing can see that protesters are behind Keir Starmer as he's trying to announce his goal of 500,000 more children reaching their early learning targets by 2030. The proposal includes hiring 6,500 more teachers and prioritising language skills. Before he was challenged, he did manage to say everyone is entitled to opportunity in education.
That's something we should be able to trust, all of us. An unwritten contract, a bond of hope between citizen and country, generation and generation. So I promise you this, whatever the obstacles to opportunity, wherever the barriers to hope, my Labour government will tear them down.
Well, the Education Secretary Gillian Keegan has responded angrily, saying the government's already making huge improvements in schools.
Through our reforms and through our improvements in standards, we're now 4th in the world for reading. That is amazing. We have just revolutionised our education system, and we've also revolutionised our skills system. Go and look at what they're actually doing in Wales. They're fiddling around with the curriculum. The standards are going down and the outcomes are much worse for children. This is too important to put in Labour's hands, and he actually doesn't know what he's talking about.
4 retired police officers involved in the first Stephen Lawrence murder investigation won't face criminal charges. The Crown Prosecution Service says it's satisfied the National Crime Agency had fully investigated their actions following the murder in 1993. The initial investigation failed to bring anyone to justice, although 2 of Stephen's murderers were eventually jailed in 2012. Connor Chapman was found guilty today at Liverpool Crown Court of the murder of Elle Edwards. CCTV footage was released showing the 23-year-old fatally shooting her outside the Lighthouse pub in the Wirral on Christmas Eve last year. Mr Chapman was convicted of her murder and 7 other counts. He's expected to be sentenced tomorrow. Elle's father, Tim Edwards, says Chapman showed no remorse and thought he could get away with it.
No remorse. Not one else, not one sign of regret for what he's done. If anything, arrogance. To actually believe he can pull the wool over people's eyes and think he can get away with it.
Let me just bring you a bit of breaking news we're receiving concerning OceanGate. That's the company that managed the tourist submersible that dived to the Titanic shipwreck in the North Atlantic Ocean. They have suspended all exploration and commercial operations, we understand. The authorities are investigating the cause of last month's undersea implosion, which killed all 5 people on board. That news just into us. Now, lastly, thousands of people gathered today for the funeral of 2 teenagers who died during a police chase in Ely in Cardiff in May. Best friends, Kyrie Sullivan and Harvey Evans, died after being hit by a bus while fleeing police on their e-bike, sparking rioting in Cardiff. That's your news. You're up to date on TV, online, DAB+ radio and the TuneIn app. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Thanks for that, Polly. I found that story about OceanGate absolutely fascinating, that they're only just suspending operations. If you were sitting at home previously thinking, do you know what I want to do? I want to get in a tin can and I want to go and see the remains of the Titanic. I bet after what happened, you wouldn't be thinking that now, would you? So I'm surprised it's taken them quite this long to suspend operations. I would have thought their client base would have perhaps dried up within seconds, but maybe I'm missing something. Anyway, I am Michelle Dewberry and I'm with you until 7 o'clock tonight alongside me, Joanna Williams, the author and academic, and David Curtin, the leader of the Heritage Party. Good evening to both of you. You know the drill as well, don't you? It is not just about us 3 here. It is very much about you guys at home as well. What is on your mind tonight? If you hear something from the panel, or heaven forbid, even me, that you think, what are they talking about? Feel free, get involved, ask us questions, hold us to account, get involved in the debate. GB Views at gbnews.com is how you reach me on the email, or you can tweet me if that is your thing, at GB News. Now, we have to start the programme with the awful news that many of you might be aware of that came from Wimbledon today. Horrible story here of a car crashing into a primary school. Our reporter, Lisa Hartle, is live in Wimbledon with all the latest now. Good evening to you. Bring us up to speed, if you will, Lisa.
Well, we heard... Police confirmed an 8-year-old girl passed away at the scene after that Land Rover had crashed into the school just before 10 a.m. this morning. Police said earlier 16 people were treated at the scene and 10 were taken to hospital. The driver, who is a woman in her 40s, has been arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving, and police say they're not treating the crash as terror-related. I spoke to local MP Stephen Hammond earlier about the incident, and this is what he had to say.
Well,
a very quiet road. It's a very narrow road, so although there are 2 golf courses up there and other things, it's very difficult to build up any speed because cars are parked on the road. You know, quite often you have to stop to let people pass. So, I mean, obviously there's real sadness at the tragedy, but also some incomprehension as to how it happened, I guess.
So as he was mentioning there about the road, talking to locals around here, that's what many of them have said. They can't understand how the car could have picked up speed and for this to have happened with it being such a small, quiet, narrow road. And this, of course, was the last day of school, children celebrating before breaking up for the summer holidays. And it's believed that there was a small event taking place in the grounds of the school when the incident happened. A major incident was declared earlier with 15 ambulances attending, together with the air ambulance, police and fire and rescue service. The police remain at the scene as the investigation continues. In a statement earlier, Detective Chief Superintendent Claire Kellen said that the next stages of the investigation will be to identify all witnesses, view CCTV, as well as interview the woman who has been arrested. The Mayor of London has also said that his heart goes out to everyone affected by the devastating crash at the school, and police are appealing for anyone who may know anything about the incident to contact them on 101.
Lisa, if you will as well, just help me understand something, because obviously I've followed this story and I've seen the aerial footage of the scene, which is just absolutely heartbreakingly devastating. Of course, the tables, picnic tables laid out, obviously all the things kind of strewn against, well, everywhere, thrown everywhere now. The car really has created some damage into the external of that school. But I don't know what I'm missing. I mean, I'm showing you this footage now, because from what we can see, the external fences to this school look intact. How has the car got in?
Well, there's so much we don't know. And when the police held the press conference earlier, questions were asked and they just said we don't want people speculating, and we feel like we've shared enough information just for now while the investigation continues. And I don't know if you can see behind me, but there's 2 roads, both still have police cordons on them, so no one is allowed down there at all at the moment. So the police, I'm sure, will brief us more with more information.
Because, Lisa, that is directly behind you, and this is what I don't know if it's just that it's not clear on the footage, but I cannot see any external perimeter that's been smashed through. To me, the fences look intact, the walls look intact, so perhaps it's just a positioning thing and we can't see, but I can't fathom how that car has got through the perimeter. Where? And that's what I'm asking you, I guess. Can you see, is the external perimeter being smashed and penetrated?
No, well, like I said, we can't. I literally can just see the roads behind me rather. So that's just one of many questions, including Stephen Hammond said, how a car could have picked up speed for this to happen. He was just baffled by it. He said because it's the kind of road where one car can go down 20-mile-an-hour limit. So everyone's baffled by. There's so many questions that people have around this tragic incident.
OK, Lisa Hartle, thank you very much for your update. Goosebumps on my arm because, Joanna, in life, you never, ever, ever know what is going to happen next. And there are families today that drop their little ones off. There's a little girls' school from aged 4. If you've seen that footage there, you can see they've got their kind of picnic tables out. They're having some kind of event. It's very exciting. They're kind of hitting their summer term, going off and doing their things. And then this happens very sadly. A little 8-year-old girl will not be returning to her family. God, my bums, I'm awful when it comes to, you know, kids being harmed and stuff. I cannot comprehend what those poor families must be going through.
It is. It's utterly devastating, and I can't imagine it either. I mean, you drop your children off at school, you fully expect to see them return home again at the end of the day. You're looking forward to hearing all their news and all their stories about what they've been doing that day, and for the parents to instead receive a phone call, to have to... it's too awful to comprehend. I think it's a very sad sign of the times that the first thing we're thinking of in such an instance, and the police need to come out and actually confirm that this wasn't terror-related, that it's not being treated as terror-related, because that is obviously, sadly, one of the first things I think that crosses through all our minds.
It's not one of the first things. For me, it was the absolute first thing. As soon as I got that alert on my phone that a car has gone into a primary school, the first thing I thought is, oh my gosh, please, I hope this is not a terror attack. That is my first thought, which is a sad reflection of society as it stands today.
It is. I mean, it's one of the first things I thought as well, but then the police are saying immediately it wasn't terror-related. But, obviously, it's a horrible thing to happen. And having been a teacher for 20 years before I got into politics, you look forward to the last day of school. It's a special day. Everyone's doing fun things, and then something like this happens. It's just, it's beyond words to
It is. One of my viewers, Oliver, has emailed straight in saying, Michelle, do you think that a story like this would get national coverage if it happened in, say, a city like Hull? Or is this national coverage a reflection of the fact that it's London-centric? I've got to say, personally speaking, I think that this would be national news wherever this situation had occurred. Like, luckily, in this country, these events are very few and far between. Things like this just do not happen in this country. Luckily, thank goodness that is the case. But I do think that this would be big news if it was outside of London too.
Yeah, anywhere. I mean, it's a child has been killed. There's something, an incident's happened. We're not sure what's happened and how it's been caused. We haven't got answers to that. So everyone wants to know, what's happened. And this would be big news wherever it took place, whether London, in a sort of rural setting or in another town or city.
Rightly so. And I've got to say, our thoughts go out to everybody affected. Of course, the families of the little 8-year-old that's very sadly not returning home tonight, and everyone, people in hospital, people that have been harmed, people that have witnessed this. It is just absolutely tragic. And if we get any more information, we'll bring it to you as soon as it happens. We have also got a very packed programme coming your way tonight. Keir Starmer, he's been out and about revealing his plans when it comes to things like education. Did you hear them? What do you make to them? Is he the man for the job? I want to speak as well about what is going on in Westminster, the whole Pinchergate. Have you seen that? And don't go anywhere as well, because I want to tell you, the GB News viewer, that you are being actively discriminated against. I'll have that story and more in 2.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs and Co with me, Michelle Dewberry. Now, lots to get into tonight, not least the fact that you might have noticed that Keir Starmer has been busy talking all about education. And what a treat, everybody, what a treat, because on my panel I have not one, but two teachers, former teachers, should I say. It's almost like we planned it, which is absolutely fabulous. David Curtin, Joanna Williams, biology, former biology teacher is David, former English teacher is Joanna. So what a perfect pair to get into this tonight, because Keir Starmer, he's had so much to say across all different aspects of educational reforms. I've got to say, the list of them are longer than about 3 of my arms put together. And we do go off air at 7 o'clock. So we've picked a few to draw out when it comes to what his missions actually are. Let's have a look. Right, you ready? You're sitting comfortably, everyone. He wants to end private schools' charitable status. He reckons that will save £1.7 billion in tax revenue. This money will be used to recruit 6,500 extra teachers in shortage subjects such as maths. It also will be compulsory for new teachers to have a formal teaching qualification or be working towards one. They also plan to give teachers £2,400 retention payments to stop them quitting. And there'll be a consultation on scrapping Ofsted's grading system. Also, they want to provide free breakfast clubs for all primary pupils, but they ruled out universal free school meals. Now, what a joy, both ex-teachers. I'll start with you then, Joanna. There was way more than this announced today. Pick whichever of the aspects you want. Are you sitting here today going, yes, the future of our kids is safe under Starmer?
Unfortunately, I'm not, because I think, sadly, I think most of these things actually have very little to do with education. The only one I think is potentially good is the plan to recruit 6,500 more teachers. But I wish him luck with that, because you can't just magic teachers up out of thin air. You know, it takes a while to get them trained up. And the sad fact is a lot of teachers quit within the first 5 years. And I put my hand up, I was one of them. And £2,400 would not have been enough to have kept me in the classroom.
Why did you go into teaching then?
Oh, I was absolutely passionate about it, and still to this day I would say I really loved teaching. What I didn't like was all the other problems that came with it that were part of the job. There are lots of problems with pupil discipline, for example, that it becomes very difficult for you to solve as an individual teacher. If you're working in a school that is not supportive of a strong disciplinary ethos, there's only so much that you as an individual can do. You need the backup from your managers. And lots of schools have policies where if children misbehave, it's the children who are kind of seen as victims, and they are taken out and they're asked what's wrong and what would make them feel better and happier and more comfortable in school. And you as a teacher, it's considered as if it's your fault that a child misbehaves in your class.
So how long did you last as a
Well,
teacher?
I did do 5 years.
Right, so you have a decade under your belt. What made you go into teaching?
When I was younger, I wanted to do something which was positive and give back to society. And I thought, if I'm a teacher, well, I can help to develop a new generation of kids and instill good, ethos and values and principles.
And how long
into
did
them.
you last?
I was a teacher for 17 years.
Oh, right. You put a proper shift in then. So what do you think then to some of these kind of pledges, whatever you want to call them?
I don't think much of what Keir Starmer's said. I mean, it's very thin gruel. It's quite, there's some, emotional statements in there, some fluffy, nebulous statements, but there's nothing concrete in there that I can see. Apart from what Joanna said, having 6,500 more teachers would be good, but every party in every election promises more teachers, more nurses, more doctors. So that's nothing unusual.
Well, what about free breakfast clubs then for primary?
I don't think it's the job of the school to feed children, breakfast, lunch or dinner. I mean, this is one of the ideas that's coming out of the left parties, that school should be a wraparound facility from like 8 in the morning until 6 in the evening. I completely disagree with that, because it's the family's job to bring up their kids and feed them.
And the fact that Starmer suggests that says to me that he doesn't really know what schools are for, that he's making these proposals saying that they're going to improve education, and actually most of these proposals have got nothing to do with education whatsoever.
But hang on, because he would argue you can have the best teachers in the world, you can have the best training delivery in the world, but if these kids, or some of them, are going to school hungry, because, yes, brilliant, some families, they're great, they feed their kids, some parents are absolute morons. They do not prioritise the absolute basics. Some kids can't even, go to toilet when they start school because their parents are absolute wrong-uns. So what he would argue is that you can have all of this money spent, you can have all of this development, but if kids cannot absorb what you're teaching because they're starving hungry, then it's all wasted money, and that's why he's proposing it.
Well, I would put things into proportion a bit. I think it's a really small minority of children who are turning up for school hungry. This is not the majority of kids who are turning up for school hungry each day. Even in really poor areas, most children go to school having eaten breakfast or having had something to eat. And the point is, I've got nothing against children being fed. I've got nothing against children.
Good, I should hope not. Good.
That's a starting off point. My own children will vouch for the fact that I do feed them every now and again, but they do generally get fed. But I think what we kid ourselves is that this is going to improve education. Ultimately, the only thing that improves standards in education is having well-qualified subject expert teachers, a disciplined ethos in the classroom, motivated teachers with high aspirations and high expectations for the pupils in front of them. You can do all the taking money off private schools, putting it into state schools, the lunches, the breakfast clubs, the parenting of children you like, but the bottom line is that will not improve education.
So let me pick another one then. He wants to have a citizenship curriculum reform to include, I quote, practical life skills. Again, that's good, isn't it?
These superfluous subjects, and there are 3 of them. There's citizenship, there's PSHE, there's RSE, relationships and sex education. I would get rid of all 3 of them and just concentrate on subjects. Parents send their kids to school. You expect them to learn about maths, English, literature, learning, reading, spelling and arithmetic, obviously, languages, music, sport. Not these superfluous things. I mean, what is life skills? What does that mean?
Well, I will give you an example.
I mean, it's very nebulous.
Well, if you said to me, what is a life skill that you can teach a kid at school that's got value added, I would say, for example, financial management. So if you can actually teach children, yes, great, maths, what is a pound plus £2, brilliant. But if you actually taught them things like compound interest, what does APR mean? What is a bank account? How do you do this? How do you access a bank account? What's good debt? What's bad debt? How do you manage debt? I would argue that if you taught people things like that, that would be good.
Well, we used to have a subject called home economics.
We did.
And that was all taught in home economics, back in the day, in the 70s and the 60s and so on, before it was kind of stripped out and then it just became about cooking. But let's get that back. That is a good subject, which is an old school subject, and I would totally agree with teaching that to all children.
So you agree with that one then? So that's good.
I'm not sure I agree, because I think these practical life skills are only become relevant and meaningful to people when they actually need them. The idea of sitting down with a class of 13-year-olds at 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon and saying, right, I'm going to teach you about compound interest and APR and financial management, half of them would be asleep and half of them would be climbing up the
Yeah, but you're not
walls
going to
within
word it like that,
minutes.
are you? What you'll say is, right, guys, kids, I am going to teach you now skills that are going to help you get all the things that you want in life, that are going to help you get a home, they're going to help you keep your home, they're going to allow you to go on holidays that you want by the
Yeah, but
travel.
Michelle, the fact is it's going to be a GCSE English and Maths that does that for them, far more than a lesson in compound interest on a Friday afternoon. You know, for them to be able to get a good job, they need to have good GCSE, A-levels, go on to university. You know, if that's the route they want to take, obviously there's other equally good routes.
Well, do you know what? I thought it was quite interesting, compound interest. What do you make to it? You tell me. Have you read all this stuff? Do you think that he is indeed the man to shape the careers, the lives and the outlooks of kids going forward? Yes or no? I've got lots coming up your way, so I do need to move on. I want to talk to you about the whole Pinchergate, what is going on in Westminster. And I really want to get something off my chest. You guys, the GB News viewers, are being actively discriminated against, and I have had enough of it. I'll tell you all before the end of the programme.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Dewbs & Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry with you until 7 o'clock. Alongside me, Joanna Williams, the author and academic, and David Curtin, the leader of the Heritage Party, both of them just giving me their views as former teachers on Keir Starmer's educational reforms. You guys have been getting in touch. Richard says Starmer's reforms are waffle, tired sound bites and have no substance. They are all topped off with a sprinkle of anti-wealth sentiment. Lots of you kind of saying, I mean, I'm trying to actually find people that are supporting and celebrating what has been said today. John says life skills should not be taught in schools. Surely it is down to the parents. Yes, though, John, I completely agree. But what if you have absolute wrong-uns as parents? What then? Do you just get thrown onto a scrap heap? I don't know. You tell me. Graham says, well, Michelle, in answer to that point, adults should pass a childcare competency test before they are allowed to have children. Someone else says, until people can decide what discipline is required in education, the school system is doomed. Martin says, what about teaching first aid, sign language, financial, social, I can't even say that, social interaction and tolerance, and on it goes. Let me know your thoughts on it all. But let's talk Westminster, shall we? Chris Pincher, you'll be aware of him. It's been recommended that he has an 8-week common suspension. Of course, this all dates back to the fact that he was found to have groped 2 men at a London club last year. Of course, he was the deputy chief whip of the Tories. Now, I've got to say, it does feel to me like these kind of what I would say kind of pervy, handsy politicians. This stuff does seem to be happening with a frequency that I find quite uncomfortable anyway. Is it something to do with the Westminster kind of mindset and culture, or what? What's going on?
It's a difficult one, because I think it does happen, quite regularly. It's something that I wouldn't even consider doing. I haven't even, come across this in my work career. As a teacher, obviously, it's a very different style and place of work.
That's good to know. That's good to know. We're ticking all the boxes. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, it does happen. It does seemingly happen with alarming regularity. But the thing is, this is a serious incident, obviously, and he's been now suspended for it. But you do get accusations to people who have just, touched someone's arm and someone is oversensitive, and then they go and make an accusation of sexual misconduct when nothing was intended. So I think on one hand, there are people making accusations which are, over and above something which could just be sorted out. And, you need to allow for a little bit of banter among adults and things like this.
But this does seem to happen. You dinosaur you, because people are yelling at their screens saying, well, yesterday's banter is today's complete no. Where are you on this, Joanna?
Well, I think, unfortunately, you get idiots in all walks of life, and Parliament's clearly no exception. When it happens in Parliament, we're far more likely to hear about it. It's going to be front-page news. In addition, I guess there's a long hours culture. There's often an alcohol-fuelled culture, and all of those, no doubt, make these things more likely to happen. But I don't think it's fair to say that Westminster is a boys' club. I mean, for one thing, it seems to me that there's more female MPs now than ever before, and to actually suggest that Parliament is still a boys' club in the face of having all these female MPs is a bit patronising and insulting to them. It suggests they've not made their mark on the place, that women like Theresa May, ex-Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, Stella Creasy, whether you agree with them or not, and the latter two, well, all of those three, I disagree with on a lot, but they're strong, powerful women who've been able to make their mark on Parliament.
But what about David's point? Because in this day and age, and I'm thinking now of that Tory, the mayor candidate, Daniel Korski, he had to withdraw from running potentially as London mayor because a female had come out and said that he'd, touched her or whatever. Years ago, so he decided, look, do you know what? I'm going to be on my campaign trail and you're not going to let me speak about my vision for London. You're going to keep asking me about this issue, so therefore I'm out of the race. And actually, a cynical view perhaps, but, any woman can sit there and go, do you know what? I don't like the Tories, or I don't like Labour, and I don't like the Lib Dems or whatever, so I don't want him to get elected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, wait until the election. I'm going to come out and say, right, he touched me. And then we know they're going to have to stand down. Is that a bit of a...
I don't think you're wrong. And I think the important point is that guy denied all the accusations against him. And believe very strongly that people should be innocent until proven guilty. And often people are choosing to jump ship at the hint of an accusation because they don't want their name to be dragged through the press. And, you know, like I said, I think there is sometimes a toxic atmosphere in Parliament, but I think often it can be women just as much as men who are to blame. I mean, we've seen the high-profile stepping down of the SNP candidate Mary Black, yet she was the one who stood up in Parliament and accused the Conservative government of being fascist. Now, you don't get much more toxic than that, as far as I'm concerned.
What I would do if I was in charge of this country, which I'm not, I would close the bars in Westminster. I think if you close these bars and you stop serving alcohol in Westminster, I think that you would change the culture of politics almost overnight. Why have they got bars, alcohol-serving bars, in their workplace? And, by the way, subsidised by me, you and everyone at home as taxpayers. Do you think you should have bars like that?
I don't see anything wrong with having bars in Westminster because it's something that's part of the tradition of the place. They've been there for decades, if not centuries.
So
and
what?
People go there well, they have a very long working day. I mean, some of the MPs, and you know, I don't think much of many of them, but in their defence, sometimes they're in Parliament, votes go on till 11, 12, 1 o'clock at night.
Which I think is ridiculous, by the way.
It is, I think, but that's the system they have at the moment. So, well, maybe need somewhere to go and relax, have a coffee, have a drink. I don't see anything wrong with that. But this Pincher case, it didn't happen in a bar in Westminster. It happened in one of the clubs outside, the Carlton Club.
I think that's a really important point. And Westminster's not the only place that has bars. I mean, I've spent 15 years working on a university campus. There's plenty of bars around a university campus, you know, and I think alcohol is a part of life. And if people are not finding access to alcohol in their place of work, they can go outside and find it there. People have to learn to deal with it.
One of my viewers, Paul, says all women working in what he calls Pestminster should get free self-defence classes. What do you think to that? You're a woman. What do you think to that?
I mean, I wouldn't say no. I like any freebies personally, and it might be good fun and good exercise. But I think, you know, you can shift the blame from women to men, you know, and back again. Men clearly shouldn't be behaving in this stupid way. Women should be able to defend themselves. Again, I think it's important we keep a sense of proportion about this. I think we run the risk of putting young women off entering Parliament and getting involved in politics if we kind of create this image that it's toxic. You know, as soon as they step foot into the Houses of Parliament, people are going to be waiting to grope them and molest them. And, you know, that's just not true. You know, you can have a very happy, successful career as a female politician without being groped or harassed.
Well, I'm going to throw it open to you. Would you ever fancy your chances as an MP? Do you sit there and go, that is the kind of career for me? Or are you on the other side of the fence, which says absolutely not on your Nelly? Would it be for you? I've got to say, I don't think actually it would be for me, if I'm honest. Anyway, I've got something to talk to you about, something that I've been desperate to get off my chest for a little while. You at home are being discriminated against, and I've got to say, I cannot sit back and let it happen any longer. We need to talk about it and do something about it. I'll see you in 2. I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc. That's the whole point. But
and action.
Sergeant, read my superstar panel. They're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News. Britain's watching.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co. with me, Michelle Dewberry, keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock. Alongside me, Joanna Williams and David Curtin remain. And you know what? I actually, if you will, just sit comfortably, grab a brew and indulge me, because there is something that I want to get off my chest. Now, if I had £1 for every time that I've been asked, Michelle, why have you got the same adverts over and over again on GB News? And quite frankly, I would be a rich woman. So it's time to address that question head on. Firstly, we have massive appreciation for every single one of our advertisers. And if you don't know by now where you can buy, sell or repair your gold jewellery, then frankly, you are beyond help. And no, I cannot do a Welsh accent. The truth is, though, that we are subject to a massive advertising boycott, and we have been ever since, well, before actually we'd even broadcast this seconds worth of content. Why? Well, because politically motivated online pressure groups have made it their life's work to try and close us down. They believe that theirs is the only permissible view, and if anyone dare to hold an opposite opinion, they must be bigots, fascists, and yes, you guessed it, racists. The very people who claim to be against hate spend so much of their time desperately whipping up hatred towards us. When a new advertiser comes on board, a campaign starts almost immediately to get them to leave us. Here's an example from just this week. A company, Grind Coffee, joined us, and then, because they were sent a 39-second clip of presenters or contributors daring to challenge the fact that perhaps the planet isn't about to literally explode in a nanosecond, they were asked to remove their advertising from us. They duly agreed, and the baying mob, they were delighted. Woohoo, look! They had their scalp. Victory was theirs. But this goes deeper, though, than just social media. Many folk at the heart of advertising and creative industries spend hours and weeks dreaming up inclusive campaigns dripping with diversity. But woe betide you if you've got the audacity to hold views that they may disapprove of, because then out the window goes that inclusion, and in the door instead comes prejudice and exclusion. This was demonstrated again just last week when one of our female senior managers attended an industry event to present awards that we, GB News, had sponsored. Listen. Right, now trust me, that video don't even show the half of it. She was treated absolutely appallingly by many of the attendees. She was shouted at, sworn at, heckled, and just so much more by a crowd that seemed to be getting increasingly volatile and aggressive. It was awful. One of the judges of the event afterwards took to social media to call us vile, which is very odd, because I don't know about you, but what I'd call vile is grown men trying to intimidate a female, especially in a professional setting. But oddly, they don't have anything to say about that. Abusing GB News, and be clear, you, our viewers, has become the acceptable face of hate. It's almost like it's the hip and cool thing to do. If you hate GB News and our viewers, wow, it's a demonstration of how woke you are. Well done, you. You're one of the good guys, so it seems. They believe in inclusion for all, but exclusion for you, the GB News viewers. They feel that somehow your pound isn't as good as everybody else's, and that your custom is not as valued, and that you matter less. We strongly disagree with this, and we value each and every single one of you, even if advertisers currently don't. We don't exist to serve the industry elites. We exist to serve you, the great British public. And we will not stop fighting for you and for the issues that you hold dear, the things that are affecting your lives and your communities. And we will not stop fighting for free speech. We will not let you down. But now it is time for us to come together, to push back, to call out what is happening, say that it is wrong, and that enough is enough. I've been wanting to get this off my chest, Joanna, for a very long time, because, you know, this, I would call this prejudice. And it is happening. I mean, I have lists. I've got lists and lists of companies that have had advertising with us and that have withdrawn their advertising. And it is infuriating me because these viewers, our viewers, matter. Their pound is just as good as everybody else's. And they are not the things, the racists, the fascists, the bigots. It is a disgrace what is going on.
Absolutely, Michelle, and I'm so glad that you said all of that, and I'm really glad you did take this opportunity to get it off your chest. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't have put it better than you did. You know, I think in displays of virtue signalling, which is what a lot of this is, these companies, they show how out of touch they are. Because, I mean, we know that GB News is got a growing audience. They're missing out on the opportunity to sell products to these people because of the hate that comes from within them, and it is prejudice. A lot of the assumptions that they make are simply not true. They've got so much prejudice towards people what they assume people who watch GB News believe, and it's not true. It's out of touch, and it shows that they are on a different planet to the rest of us. The only thing I would add, you know, is a word of warning to these companies, because I think one brilliant thing that we've seen in the past few months is what happened to Bud Light in the US when they used a well-known transgender character to promote Bud Light, and a boycott ensued, and their profit margin dropped through the floor. So I think boycotts can work both ways. You know, these advertising companies might boycott GB News, but we can choose to boycott them.
David, what do you make to it?
I think it's absolutely appalling that these companies are boycotting you in GB News, and us, you know, and the viewers as well. They're not doing themselves any favours, actually, because if they advertised with you, they would find a large and a growing audience. So really, they're shooting themselves in the foot. But it is absolute prejudice, and they are doing this because there are pressure groups from the far left who are leaning on them, like you said, and agitating for them to pull their adverts because they don't want anyone with a conservative or a traditional view to have airtime. This is it. They've got their own ideologies, their far left, liberal, progressive ideologies, and they want to shut out anyone who disagrees with them. And it's completely wrong. It's an attack on free speech. It's an attack on freedom.
Yeah, when I heard about this event, I mean, you'll remember at home, actually, the Trick Awards, when Nigel Farage, he got an award, didn't he? The industry kind of attendees is, they were absolutely beside themselves. They couldn't believe it. And that was a people's vote, by the way, voted by you. This channel beat the likes of, for example, Good Morning Britain, hugely established programmes, channels as well. So we know that we're doing things that people care about. And, you know, we know that our audience, you know, they are kind of, yes, OK, some people might have voted for Brexit in this society. And guess what? Oh, you ready, trigger warning? They might watch GB News. And this whole kind of thing about xenophobic, racist, it's come from, I think a lot of it stems down to that. People cannot cope with an opinion that is not the same as theirs.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the irony, of course, is that these people kind of profess how kind they are. You know that if anybody on Twitter, for example, or on any other social media channel puts kind of hashtag be kind in their profile, you know they're probably going to be the most vile, horrible person going.
See, one of the attacks that they will constantly say about this channel is that you're not balanced, you're not balanced, you're not balanced. Well, I've got to say, I mean, I've sat on this programme now for, you know, best part of 2 years, and I sit here day in, day out with people of different persuasions. We've had everyone on here, Labour former councillors, Heritage Party, Tories. You know, do you think that we provide balance?
Absolutely. I mean, I have some very spicy arguments with people here who've got very different opinions.
Do you?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, what do you make to it all at home? Honestly, guys, what is going on, in my mind anyway, is absolutely unacceptable. You can look at it for yourself. This is a hate mob, if you ask me, a politically motivated one, whipping up hatred. And you know what? They're being quite successful. That is why you do see repeated adverts. And I reiterate, we appreciate each and every single advertiser that does get involved in this channel. And by the way, an advertiser advertising on a channel, it doesn't mean that they endorse every single syllable that exits somebody's mouth. The premise of that is absolute lunacy. I mean, I don't even know where that's come from.
No, it's totally bizarre. I mean, you wouldn't accept that in a newspaper, for example. You'd see all kinds of products advertised. You wouldn't assume that the advertisers are endorsing every word printed in the newspaper. GB News seems to be given a special treatment as far as this is concerned. And again, it's a prejudicial,
well, one of my viewers
treatment.
is saying, well, who are these companies? Well, I mentioned, Paul, this is coming across the industry, advertising agencies. I've been in, me personally, and met with advertising execs. You know, you can tell when you meet some of these people, it's the problem often stems with them, their closed mind, their biased mind. It starts from them and then it trickles out. But lots of brands have removed advertising from us. There's a list as long as my arm, Grind. One this week, as I just mentioned, the coffee brand. We've had previous withdrawals from people like Bosch, Grolsch, IKEA, Koppenberg, Vitality, Nivea, Open University, Pinterest. There's loads of people, Specsavers. We value all of those brands, and I know that our consumers do as well. You know what? You're probably consumers of some of those brands. And my message to those companies, by the way, is that the viewers of GB News, their pound, their custom is just as valuable as anybody else, and you are missing out by not talking to them. Anyway, look, time flies. Joanna, thank you for your time. David, thank you for yours. We will keep standing up for you here at GB News. That is literally why we exist. We will not let you down. We will keep fighting for free speech, and we are not going anywhere. Thank you for watching, for listening. Have a good evening, and I will see you tomorrow.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here.